Bonjour, Stas Music. Je suis Ola STRANDBERG. And I'll try and convey the short story about Strandberg because I could talk about it for hours. But I grew up making a lot of things on my own because we didn't have a lot of money necessarily. So it's kind of natural for me to try and build or make things that I didn't own myself. And when I started playing guitar in my early teens, that was kind of an accident. I started out playing the drums and we moved from the north of Sweden, Umeå, to Uppsala, where Strandberg is located currently. And we had to get rid of a lot of stuff. My drum kit, an aquarium, and I traded an aquarium for an electric guitar. And I immediately started modifying it, trying to improve it because it was a pretty terrible guitar. And many years later, after I'd been to school and studied to become a mechanical engineer, and I also had a career in the software industry and practically burnt myself out. So I dreamt back to the days of playing guitar and thought I would make myself a guitar as kind of a mental recovery project from too much work, really. So I just wanted to build a guitar for me, a guitar that made sense. I visited some music stores after 15 years of not visiting music stores, and I realized that nothing had happened. Some digital things had shrunk and become smaller, but what was on the shelves was kind of the same. So I really started with a very open mind and just wanted to do something that I found interesting and perhaps would solve a problem. And I'd had this career in the software industry with product development and innovation. I'd moved into product management and product design. And also thinking back to the days when I played guitar myself, I had owned a Steinberger copy that was headless, and that just appealed to me or appealed to my engineering brain. So I started looking around for headless hardware to buy, and there wasn't really any at this time. But I stumbled on this community called buildingtheergonomicguitar.com, where builders from all around the world interacted with each other and discussed and showed off their work. That was just interesting to me, finding this community where they tried to solve a problem, not just build another guitar. So that's really how the ergonomic angle came up. And that's what resulted in this design. I knew I wanted to make it a headless guitar, kind of from the get-go, just from the engineering perspective. But then when I started looking or thinking about it in terms of ergonomics, it just made such perfect sense that in order to make a lightweight guitar that still balances well, you kind of have to get rid of all this weight from the tuners at the end of the headstock. So I could move that weight to the body with this headless construction. And then I started sketching out this body shape because I did some research and I found that a lot about player ergonomics is the ability to change playing position, to avoid sitting in a static position for hours on end practicing. So I came up with this shape of the guitar which allows you to rest it on the right leg or rest it at an angle, or on the left leg or at an angle here. So you can really vary the playing position quite a bit when you're sitting down. And when you're standing up, it's incredibly lightweight and it balances. It's not neck heavy as a lot of conventional guitars. So I built a few more prototypes, and then this guy called Chris Letchford, who had a band called Scaleless Summit, he was a member of that forum, and he got in touch and said, "Hi, I'm Chris. I tour a lot. Can you build me a 7-string guitar?" I hardly knew that 7-string guitars existed, but I obviously said yes. And he did tour a lot, and he was part of a new emerging type of musician, very entrepreneurial, self-published. They put together touring packages with 4 or 5 bands, all toured together. So it was this perfect environment of incredibly creative, amazing musicians who were pushing the envelope musically. So to them, having a guitar that looked out of the ordinary was perfect. And they were playing with 7-string guitars, 8-string guitars. So pretty natural to them to not have just a super Strat with a couple of extra strings. So Chris was out touring with, among others, Animals as Leaders. He showed it to Tosin Abasi. They toured with Periphery. Amisha Mansour got in touch. And yeah, and the rest is history. Snowballed, and here we are, selling Strandberg guitars all over the world. I've listened to a lot of very different kinds of music growing up. I had a massive Bob Dylan period, I had a massive Pink Floyd period, etc. And I can't remember exactly where I was when I got the first email from Tosin Abasi, but I do remember it was in the middle of winter and our house had a pretty flat roof. So when it snowed enough, you had to like climb up on the roof and shovel off the snow, or the roof would cave in. And I looked up Animals as Leaders and put it in my headphones and started shoveling snow, and my mind was kind of blown. It was the type of music that I had never heard before. I had not listened to metal music very much at all at this point in time. I mentioned this mind-blowing experience to some friends, and they said, "Oh, you need to check out Meshuggah." So more mind-blowing experiences. So I don't necessarily come from like a metal background, but there's such amazing musicianship and energy in this community, and the more I interact with metal musicians, the more like I enjoy it. I was kind of scared of them initially, but it's an incredible community, I think, in general. And I think where Strandberg started, again, with, a 6-string guitar is a 6-string guitar. So our improvements to the 6-string guitar, they're very much appreciated by very many people. But I think the difference of the Strandberg features in the extended range realm is even greater. Building such a lightweight and resonant instrument on a 7-string and an 8-string with the multi-scale, just the playability you get, and the other ergonomic features, such as the Endurneck, which I can describe in more detail later, it makes an even greater difference for a 7 and 8 string guitar, or even 9 strings for that matter. But I think we got a big following in the metal community and the prog community that are associated with these kinds of instruments. So it's been pretty natural to grow there. But when I started out, Alan Holsworth was really like my musical god at the time. He was my dream customer. The first guitar that I built, I tried to imagine what Alan Holsworth would want. So that was kind of who I designed the guitar for, and stumbling on this metal community and growing there initially was, I wouldn't say accident, but just very good timing, coming along with a guitar that met the needs of this emerging music genre and the incredible players that populate it. So in the early days, I came up with this design pretty quickly. And then at some point, also fairly early on, I started messing with this multi-scale concept and also looking into this matter of player ergonomics. A lot of it is about reducing stress on muscles and tendons in your fingers, the wrist and the forearm. A lot of that is about avoiding angles and sharp bends of these joints. So one of the things that the multi-scale, which wasn't a new invention at the time, a lot of people did it, but for more tonal purposes and pretty extreme relationships between the frets. So on the 6-string guitar, just starting with this neutral nut and have a very slight angle that was part of just accommodating this kind of windshield wiper type motion that you do with your arm and give a more natural angle to your hand. And then further research brought me on to an invention called the torsal twist neck, which was the entire neck would actually twist. So as you extended your hand, the neck would twist to allow you to play with a straighter wrist. I started messing with that and realized that, yeah, this works from an ergonomics perspective, but you have to adapt your playing technique in order to use it, because if you try to bend upwards, the string will fret out. And I didn't want that, although the general idea appealed to me. And I also realized that if you brought a guitar like that into a shop or a guitar technician and asked for an adjustment, they would probably just say, no, I'm not touching that. Certainly another design objective was to make something that was possible to produce and wouldn't require special skills to service. Even though if you would just measure the thickness of this neck with the caliper, it is thicker, which is good for tone in the guitar. But the way that these surfaces work, they kind of fool your brain into not thinking of it as a thick neck. A lot of metal players in particular, they like super thin necks, or so they think. So they'll ask, like, what are the dimensions? I need to know because I like thin necks. To tell them, don't worry about the measurements, just try it and you'll see. Because it works, and the added thickness actually contributes to being able to play more relaxed and put less stress on the muscles in this whole area. Maybe looks weird initially, but forget about it after a few minutes play and it just feels natural. Then anything else starts feeling weird, unfortunately. Well, Stars Music fans, thank you so much for watching. This is Ola STRANDBERG, clocking out.